My name's Steve Rooms. I'm a business investor and qualified accountant, and I'm about to appear on the online prosperity show. I will talk about my journey in mergers and acquisitions, and we'll discuss various aspects of it, from my inspiration, how I trained, mentors. Stay tuned, watch the show. I think you'll thoroughly enjoy it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. And today we're going to be diving deep into the world of mergers, acquisitions, and business growth with a man who knows numbers like the back of his hand. Now, Steve Rooms, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very well. Thanks, Prosper. How are you?
Well, I am so excited when I saw you come through and register to be on the show. I was really excited because your goal is to help people sell their business and also buy businesses so that they can grow and scale. And who isn't excited about things of that nature?
Well, absolutely. I started to get involved in this a few years ago, and you never get 2 days alike. It's really, you're meeting some fantastic people, see some fantastic businesses. I love it. I really, really enjoy what I do.
Absolutely. I can't wait to jump into that. But obviously, this video is going to be international, and we just want to make sure that we are clear on the advice or the information that we're going to be giving on this show. Do you mind just giving us a small disclaimer so we can continue with the episode, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that we say in the video, if we ever need to provide specialist advice, we work with specialist partners, whether it be from a legal point of view, or if there's anything local for accounting or financial purposes, then we'll bring in a specialist. So what I'll do today is talk generally about what I do and how I do it.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for clearing the air right there, because so many people would be confused as to, how to take the information that we are going to be talking about in this show. Now that we've got the legalese out of the way, I want you to be excited about this. Now, Steve is not just a qualified accountant. He's also a business investor with a knack for acquiring businesses, and not only just one business or the one he works in. He's done that 6 times, to be exact, in various sectors. So he knows a thing or two about buying, selling, and acquiring businesses. And for so many people, when you're selling a business, it's usually one of the hardest decisions that you'd ever make, because it's something you've worked all your life to bring to fruition, and you're now having somebody just looking at the numbers or just looking from the outside and sort of giving you some sort of evaluation of what they think your business is worth. Okay, so I'm hoping Steve will be helping us with what then happens next after that. Now, as I mentioned, Steve is our numbers guy, but when he's not busy helping other deal makers with financial analysis and due diligence, you might actually find him lifting weights at the gym or cheering his favorite rugby team. And did I mention this? Apparently, Steve once dated a UK Prime Minister's nanny. I can't wait to jump into this one. I think this is the biggest M&A, story that you're going to have to share with us, Steve. I had to whisper that just in case people were listening, all right? Yep, you heard that right. But today, I think we're only just going to be focusing on his journey from CFO to a successful entrepreneur who now helps others scale their businesses and have a happier existence. Now, Steve, I could go on and on. I don't know if you can sense my excitement all the way there, but let's just maybe start off with your journey. You've gone from being a CFO to then acquiring 6 businesses. First of all, what inspired you to make this shift?
During corporate life, I worked for a PLC in the UK. And that allowed me to travel. So I was in my early 20s. I was part of a company who was acquiring businesses in Germany, Sweden. We had a subsidiary in Paris, in France. And I got the opportunity to get involved in those companies. And it also gave me a flavour for what mergers and acquisitions was all about, albeit I was a small part of that team. but it really interested me. And I'd always had ambitions by the time I got to be in my late 30s to start up my own company, which I went on to do. So I was sort of 38, 39 when I set up my original company, providing accounting and business advisory services and some specialist reporting services. And then COVID happens. And at that time, a lot of the consulting work stops. So I took that opportunity to go and find the people who could fill in the gaps of my knowledge in mergers and acquisitions. So I did the research. I looked at various people who could teach me how to do this and found two in particular. I did both courses. One of them gave me an insight into leverage buyouts, predominantly. And the other one gave me access to 15 different deal structures. And after that, I found it fascinating. Within 6 weeks, this was back in July 2020, 6 weeks after completing the second course, I bought my first company. And the way I started this was straight after the course, I started to contact local firms of accountants, solicitors, independent financial advisors, those people who had clients who potentially may be looking to sell. And it started from there. I couldn't visit them face to face, but what I could do is have a call like this. We could jump on Zoom calls. I understood the types of businesses who I were looking for. So I was looking for businesses that were at least 10 years old. So there's a little bit of maturity about them, with a minimum turnover of £1 million. And ideally, they had a management team. It's not essential, but it's something that is important, because of what I didn't want to do was buy myself a job. So that infrastructure was important. And then I just started to make phone calls. And it was the second firm of accountants that I spoke to. We've got 6 clients who are looking to sell. They said, we can discount 4 of them from what you've described, but 2 of them could be interesting. So I bought one of them, and the second one we actually got and signed heads of terms, but unfortunately his brother was taken ill and that deal stalled. So he wanted to focus on his family, understandably. But since then, as you rightly say, we've gone on to buy 6 other companies or 5 other companies. I've sold one of them. I'm currently building a group of UK accountants with a view to acquiring 6 to 10 accountants over the next 5 years. And we're hopefully about to complete on another business in the leisure sector, which we came across by accident. It was somebody who approached us because they wanted help to prepare for sale. And we looked at it. When I grew up, I live in Yorkshire, so I've got a lot of good walking in Yorkshire. And I also spent an awful lot of time down in the southwest and in the Lake Districts, beautiful parts of the world, walking every weekend. So when a company comes up that specialises in walking holidays, it piques my interest. So with a business partner, we went back to them almost immediately and said, well, we don't want to help you to sell it. We want to buy it. And everything went from there. So we're about to close. Hopefully, the end of this week, we'll be closing on that deal. So it's been fascinating. We've seen the opportunities I've been given since getting involved in mergers and acquisitions has been tremendous. If you'd have said to me at Christmas time that you'd have minority stakes in companies in the United States and Canada, I wouldn't have believed you. But that's what's happened. Your opportunities come, and it's up to you to take them, isn't it?
Absolutely, and congratulations. I mean, it was just before we started that we were talking how global the world has become. It's just become one village, and if you're not taking advantage of all these opportunities, then obviously you're missing out on the next wave of where the world is actually headed to. But you started off in a cushy sort of corporate job, and you then went on, obviously, like you said, yes, there was the disruption of COVID and things of that nature, but this must have been daunting to go out on your own. What were some of the sort of maybe fears or challenges that you would have faced when you first considered going out by yourself?
Well, one of the first things is you worry that you won't get any work. So, nobody's going to want to do any business with you. So the way that I managed that, because I'm involved in accountancy and a lot of sort of reporting and things like that, I contacted local recruitment companies and said, look, this is what I'm doing. So I had a pool of 6 or 7. So they were providing me work initially. So that got the ball rolling. it kind of filled up the weeks with plenty of work. So I did work with BP, some large companies in the UK, Hull University, London Business School, and that helped to build my reputation for financial analysis and reporting. And from there, at the same time, I was looking at my marketing strategies and how I could bring business in off my own efforts. And it kind of built up from there. But it is quite daunting when you first launch a new business because you're heading into the unknown. You've just got to trust your ability.
Absolutely. And obviously, I think when you were talking, you did say you did a couple of courses, and that would have involved you having a mentor, which obviously was then crucial to give you the confidence in this transition that you then took. Can you maybe share a little bit more about how maybe your mentor would have guided you, and how this sort of relationship has helped you moving forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So the second course that I did, as part of that, you've got a 12-week accountability program where you were assigned a separate mentor who had done deals themselves, and they took you through a 12-week program, helping you to make sure you were doing the right things in the right order. As you leave the course, you've got 1,000 ideas going off in your head, but they say, right, we're going to take things one step at a time. Let's look at the way that you present on social media. Let's look at the way that you're sourcing deals. Let's have a look at how you're analysing deals. So it's a systematic approach. And they're there to answer any questions or even to attend calls if you need them to. So from going on and having that was fantastic support for me. But I also knew that the person who ran the course was still my ultimate mentor as well. And since going on and buying businesses, I've become a VIP member of that investment company. So now I run accountability programs. So I've helped other people to get deals done as part of an accountability program. And so it also gives me direct access to the person who trained me.
Absolutely. And I mean, I obviously believe if you want to go far, you go alone. But if you want to go further, you go together. And, you know,
Absolutely.
in this world, why invent mediocrity when you can copy genius? So if somebody has already done it and somebody has the blueprint, all you're just doing is just mirroring what they have done so you can actually get the results that you are after. But you've also worked in various countries. You know, you mentioned France, you mentioned Germany, and I think you did some stuff in Morocco as well, which would have obviously opened you up to the scope of what the world looks like, not just walking tours in Yorkshire. How did these sort of international experiences shape the approach that you now have in business acquisitions today?
Well, it certainly broadens your horizons because you get access to different ways of working, different business cultures, and it's even different sets of the way that they're reporting. It can differ from country to country. So, for example, in Germany, it was typically as efficient. You know, we're grown up believing that the Germans are very efficient, and it was fantastic to see the way that they did business, and the hospitality of the Germans was fantastic. So I got to work with some really, really good people, and people who I still know today.
Absolutely. I mean, I've had a few German people on the call, and they're very punctual, and obviously everything about them is about precision, and things like that. But I kind of think like you were also, you know, fortunate to have done this before the pandemic, because pretty much after the pandemic, a lot of people now detest traveling. You never know, the, you know, stay-at-home orders might actually be called upon and you're overseas and you've got no way of coming back. And speaking about the COVID pandemic, while some of us were busy coughing in our elbows, you were busy acquiring businesses. I mean, what was that experience like?
The first deal that we did, I guess, you know, I was very lucky. The person the seller who I was dealing with was a dream to work with. So having identified them as a potential acquisition target, we had the first call, just an old-fashioned telephone call. And the key thing was to build up rapport with them. But what I wanted to do ahead of that call was not just understand about the business. So I did the commercial due diligence. So I did a mystery shopper I called to find out a little bit more about the business and the process and how quickly would they respond. I looked at the website, I looked at on-site reviews, I looked at as much of the business information, but also what was important to me was to find out as much about them. And I did some research about them. Yes, you can find them on LinkedIn, and I could find them on Facebook. But what I also found was an article in the local press where he'd got to the finals of a national competition for dog agility training. So during that first call, I said, oh, and I even knew the names of the dogs. I found out the names of the dogs as well. So during that first conversation, I said, how did he get involved in this? And one was called Hope, and I forget the name of the other dog now. And how were they doing? He said, how did you know that? But that helps with the rapport. And then from that point onwards, we got on so well. And quite quickly, we got to the stage where we'd agreed a deal. And then we go to heads of terms. We agreed heads of terms. And then we get involved in due diligence. So whilst the due diligence process is ongoing, which took just over a week, while that's ongoing, we're preparing a sale and purchase agreement and a consultancy agreement. And by that stage, solicitors have got involved. There's a little bit of toing and froing, agreeing the final bits and pieces on the deal, and we signed. So in late September 2020, we signed the first deal. And it's quite strange. So we're all sat in a room, and we've all got masks on. So there was 6 of us. And it looked as if we were preparing to do a bank robbery. And the only person who didn't have a mask on was their solicitor, who was actually talking us through the documentation. So anyway, it was quite funny. But it's an emotional time for the seller as well. So it was a husband and wife. And his wife got quite emotional because she'd worked in the business for 20 years. And at that point, I'm thinking, are they going to change their mind? But no, they signed, and we went on from there. But it's a great experience because I think in your mind, you build things up that it's this great big thing, and these sophisticated business owners, but they're just people like you and I. So once you start to have a conversation, then you start to relax, and then you start to enjoy it. And the more you learn, the more you want to know. So the whole process I really, really, really enjoyed. And once you've signed the deal, you come out of the solicitor's office and think, I don't want to do another one. I really enjoyed that. Can we do it again? And then you start to think about, well, what do we do? Do we bolt on something that's in a similar sector to this? Do we look at something different? So I've loved every minute of it.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, with the kind of businesses that you're buying, like you said, 10 years old, sort of close to $1 million in valuation, and they've got somewhat of a management team around them. Those would have been created by an individual person who was going through a whole lot of the time, blood, sweat, and tears for them to actually bring that together. So obviously, when you're now sitting across them, for them, they're just looking at every bit of work they put into the business, and the solicitor is just looking at, like you say, heads of agreement, and you know what I mean. So yeah, emotions are bound to come into play. Now, how do you detach yourself? I mean, obviously, in this current role, you're also helping other sort of deal makers with the financial analysis and the due diligence, and maybe just all that, dealing with emotions as they come about. Because one of the latest businesses that you bought was the one with walking safaris or walking tours, which would have obviously lit up an emotional need inside of you as a human, because that reminded you as a child. How do you detach yourself from a high stakes negotiation when things like that are happening?
I think it comes with experience. I think you can get so emotionally involved in it, and you really, really have to remind yourself that why you're doing it. You're buying an investment and something that you want to grow as part of a group. So as much as we love my business partner and I, as much as we love the business model and we can see the opportunities to expand it, we've got to detach ourselves, because we're not going to be able to be day-to-day involved in that business. Fortunately, we've identified somebody who will manage the business for us. And that allows us to free our time up, because we've got to first and foremost remind ourselves that if we get involved in the day-to-day, we don't have time to go look at the businesses which would benefit or would complement what we're currently buying. So, for example, if we look at this particular business that we're completing on, there is another business that helps people stay at UK castles. Now, bearing in mind that a lot of the clients for this business that we're acquiring come from overseas, a lot of them from the United States, the opportunity to stay in an English castle is really appealing. So there's potentially to buy a business there. There's another business that's involved in cycling. There's another business that's involved in Western Europe, in Portugal. So that we've identified other businesses which we can bring together in a group, and we can then start to cross-sell. We can provide more services. So it's quite exciting. At the moment, there's a lot of untapped potential in what we see. And that's what we've got to keep first and foremost in our mind. If we got too emotionally attached, then we want to be involved in the day-to-day, and we can't do that because we don't give ourselves time to then talk to the business owners, for these are the ones that we're interested in.
Absolutely. One of the statements that you mentioned, Steve, was I'm not going to be buying myself a job. Now, obviously, I would venture to say a lot of businesses that even I, as a marketer, come across, the business owner is the one that's fully involved in the business, the day-to-day. They're the janitor, they're the CEO, they're just doing just about everything within the business. What are some of the common pitfalls that you see people making, especially when they're getting maybe ready to sell their business, and how do you sort of alleviate that once you've got the business yourself?
We've got a business model. So if we look at the accounting businesses, for example, we often find that with the accounting businesses and the owners who are looking to retire, there are certain things that they don't do particularly well. They don't market themselves, so they don't have any marketing strategy. They haven't documented the systems and processes, which are another big one for somebody looking to exit the business. The business may be too heavily dependent on them. And another thing with accountants is we find that they may say they're accountants and business advisors, but they're not really advising. So we see this quite frequently, in that the business owners hasn't prepared themselves correctly to exit. So if the business is heavily dependent on them, it presents a risk, because what happens when they leave? Will the relationships with the customers break down? Are some of the staff going to want to leave and move on? So we've got to really look at how heavily involved are they, and how much additional work do we have to do. We're happy to do that work, but we're not necessarily prepared to pay a premium price for a business that needs a lot of work doing to it. So I think one of the key messages that we find, and when we help business owners to prepare for sale, is it's not going to be like selling a house. It's not as if you're going to put a for sale sign outside and it will sell. It takes time. You've got to make sure that you've done the preparation, put all these systems and processes and document them. You've got to make sure you've got a robust team. You've got to make sure that you're effectively sacking yourself from the business. If you're there five days a week and you are sweeping the floors and you're changing the toner in the photocopier, then the business is too heavily involved. So you need a succession plan. So with the people who we work with, we put that succession plan in place, so that anybody then coming into the business or has an interest in acquiring the business, they've got all the systems and processes. They've got a business owner that's no longer dependent on the owner, a data room that's been populated. So all the due diligence has been prepared. So we do as much in that business as we possibly can to make it difficult for an acquirer to say no.
Absolutely. And if you make the business sellable, it actually, you hold the chips, the bargaining chips, when it comes to selling this business. Now, you not only sort of did this for yourself, I mean, with the 6 or 5 businesses that you now have, having sold the other 5, but you're also helping others to acquire businesses, and you're not just doing this in the UK. I mean, I'm in Australia, and you just mentioned you've been speaking to people in Australia. Do you have maybe any success stories that actually stands out, that have been particularly rewarding in your journey so far?
Yeah, of course. If we go back from the training, and I started to run the accountability groups, and have had over 70 people now put through these groups. And just, I think 32 it is now, 32 of them have done deals, and some of them within the 12-week program. And that's always fantastic to see, because you've kind of taken them under your wing. They've got all the knowledge from the course. Then you're helping them to put everything into order and help them to go through any areas where they're not sure, or help them with financial analysis. And then when you get the feedback, actually, I've just completed my first deal. It's a tremendous feeling. It's almost when you've taught one of your children something for school and then they get it. And so when you hear that one of your mentees have got deals done, it's fantastic. And not only that, we're just helping a client in Turkey to establish themselves in the UK. It's a fire and security business. I've helped people in the US to acquire deals. The client in Australia, what we've actually done is help them with financial analysis. And what we've also done is introduce them to other people in the network who have got expertise in raising finance for deals. So it's not always just about providing that financial analysis for them, but we can also make introductions, because I'm conscious that I don't know everything, but I do know people who've got the skills that I don't. So if I can introduce them and help them to access those skills or knowledge, that's what we'll always do.
Absolutely. So it's not what you know, it's who you know that actually makes this M&A game viable, right? Because like you said, they are different players, different teams, different expertise, and different people that you can sort of take advantage of. Now, I think you mentioned something about a financial analysis with the person in Australia, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the services that you offer for people that are looking to buy a business. Now, for somebody who's new to all of this, what would be the first thing that they should actually take into consideration when they are looking to acquire a business?
Well, the way that we look at this is we analysed 3 years of what we call statutory accounts or published accounts, plus the current year management accounts. Also, we can start to see, well, what are the trends? What's happening with sales? What are the gross margins doing? Is there anything in overheads that we don't understand? What does the balance sheet tell us? So have they got any assets which we could use to raise finance against? Are there any long-term loans which would make it difficult to raise finance? Is there any property in the business? So we start to understand the performance of the business over the last 3 years and the current year as well. If we've got the current year management accounts month by month, we can start to look at, well, what is the seasonality? Once we've done that, we can start to get a feel for where do we think the valuation is. So the model that we've built looks at all of the various multiples by sector from a company in the United States, and they publish an annual report which gives us the multiples on actual deals being done. So we can prepare an initial valuation based on that information. But then what we want to do is we then need to consider what does the deal structure look like. So we prepare 5-year financial forecasts. So the financial 5-year forecast we do conservatively, because if we can make a deal structure work with conservative growth, anything that we do once we've acquired it, or once the business owner, once the investor acquires it, is all upside for them. So we prepare those forecasts. Now we can start to say, well, how much cash is this business going to generate? And we'll also look at things like the fixed assets in the business. How old are the fixed assets? Do we need to replace them? And we can factor that into the cash flow forecast as well. Now we've got all of that information, we can now start to look at deal structures which would work. So we've got an ideal deal structure, which we would like to do, or they would like to do, and then we prepare a series of alternatives. So if the seller of the business comes back and says, well, I quite like it, but I was really hoping for this, or can we structure it in this way? Well, we've got a series of other deal structures where we can say, well, okay, let's go away and we'll look at it. And we'll come back with an alternative, and we've got them already prepared. So we find that, and it's one area that's a lot of the courses don't teach in any great detail, which is why we now provide that service. And for a lot of business owners and investors, they may be very good at engineering, they know the sector inside out, or healthcare, or whatever the sector is that they've got sector experience in, but they don't necessarily know the numbers. And that's where we help them. So we can provide that. We can hold their hand through that financial analysis phase of the deal, if you like. And then once they've done that, if they need support with due diligence, we can help them with that as well.
That's interesting, because once you've got all that in place, it's easy for you to actually then see whether it's a good buy or it's going to be a lemon. Now, what would be the best way that people can get a hold of you, Steve, so that they can see if they're eligible to start working with you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn. So I'm easy enough to find on LinkedIn. I've got a YouTube channel. I'm just starting to build that up. They can contact me at steve@steverooms.com. So there's various different ways they can contact me if they reach out. What we will do, we won't commit somebody to a financial service. We will have a quick look at the accounts before we enter into anything, because if we look at a set of accounts, and straight away we can see that he's got an awful lot of debt in there, and that it would be really difficult to get a deal done, we'll advise the client so they're not wasting the money. So we will take a quick look first before we go any further.
Okay, fantastic. I will make sure that all those links are in the show notes so that people, obviously can get started working with you. I mean, you've gone from obviously you analyzing these numbers to actually helping other people understand them. And there's usually, even when you're talking numbers with someone or even their mortgage or just somebody seeing an actual report of how their money and how their everything else is going, it's a very transformational experience for a lot of people, because so many people are not so many people are financially literate. What's been the most sort of significant transformation you've seen maybe in yourself since you started on this journey?
Well, I think one thing I've always prided myself in is to be as unaccountant-like as possible. Yes, I'm a qualified accountant, but I don't speak in accountant's language. So as I'm taking people through the financial analysis, once the analysis is done, we then have a one-to-one call where we will talk through what I see in the accounts, which is good, bad, or indifferent, and I'll explain why that is. Now, I'm always on hand. If ever they get stuck, they will have my WhatsApp. They've got my email address. So if they ever do get stuck in a deal, or if they even want me to attend a call with a seller, we're happy to do that. I'm always happy to help them out and support them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's quite, it gives you peace of mind knowing that somebody is there to look after it. You know what I mean? It's like, when you leave your kids with like a nanny, they are going to be taken good care of, and you can go about your business and not worry about somebody looking after the kids. And speaking of nannies, you have been involved with the UK Prime Minister's nanny, right?
Yeah, we dated for a while. Yeah, that's probably. I loosely say it's a claim to fame, but yes, it was a few years ago. But I did date Prime Minister's nanny. Yeah.
Well, you see, they always say there's 6 degrees to, of separation, and I think I've just discovered my 6 degrees here. I've met somebody who's very close to number 10 Downing Street, so there we go.
Yeah, there we are. Yeah.
Speaking of which, what do people like prime ministers have for breakfast? I mean, obviously that could be. Are they any different to any of us?
They're just normal people. They just have more powerful jobs than most of us.
Absolutely. We probably even have more fun than they do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, look at what we're doing, speaking from across the continent, and you're helping people acquire businesses, and you can just walk in, look at what a business is doing, and figure out if it is a lemon or a good buy. But this wasn't what it was like for you, when you were younger. Obviously, like you said, in the early 20s, you were stuck in a job that obviously may have given you the platform you're on right now. But if we would have asked you at that particular time if this is what you would have been doing, I don't think you would have, known that you'd have come and traveled this far. So what's maybe one piece of advice you'd want to give to your younger self, knowing what you know now about business and life?
I think you always surround yourself with the people who've got the knowledge that you haven't. And there's a saying, isn't there? if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. So I'm well aware that having a mentor is really crucial. And I was very lucky working for the PLC in the UK that the chief executive took me under his wing. I was the sort of person that would just call it as it is. If he asked me a direct question, I would give him a direct answer, even if it wasn't what he wanted to hear. And because he appreciated that, he took me under his wing and mentored me. And I've always been grateful to a gentleman called Bob Healy. I'll always be grateful to him for that. And since then, that helped me to understand how important it was to have somebody with all of that knowledge and experience that they're willing to share with you, and then put you into situations where I got to travel to Germany and to across to France and spend time there and get involved in what is some of these special projects, and that started to open my eyes to what was possible and to different ways of working in Germany and France, as we've talked about. And I think having those people who are there, who you can always pick the phone up and say, I've got this situation. I think I know the answer, but I'm not confident. Can we talk about it? And so to have those people there that says, yeah, of course, when you're free, let's sit down and have a coffee and we'll talk it through. That's gold dust, isn't it? Because without that person, you're going to get involved in something where you could make mistakes. And the mistakes in my case might cost me a deal, or might lead me to doing a deal that's a poor deal. So it's having those people around you who are more knowledgeable than you, have got experience or specialist skills that you haven't, is very important.
I really believe in life, Steve. We're here to live, to learn, and to contribute. And for us to be able to live that perfect life, we need to learn. First of all, we could learn from our own experiences, but it's better to learn from those that have been there before. And like you say, your mentor, the first one that you mentioned, and now Bob, the CEO of the company that allowed you to grow your wings. And now you are also contributing and sending the elevator down for others to also elevate and go further. Now, for someone who's done all of this and you can walk into a business, maybe buy it or not buy it, and things of that nature, and you've actually built and scaled multiple businesses for that matter. What do you actually believe is the most important factor for long-term business success?
Long-term, it's relationships. People buy from people, and the key people in any business that we buy is the team. These are the guys who have got the business to where it is now, and these are the people who are going to hopefully take you on to more success in the future. So it's making sure that you've got the strong relationships with your team and having the right people in the right roles. Culture's huge. I've walked into businesses when I've been consulting where the culture's been awful, and the atmosphere's been awful, and it's very difficult to turn something like that around. So if you've got a business where you've got a really strong culture and a really good team ethic, that goes a long way.
Absolutely. Yeah, like you say, it takes a village to actually build a business, and it takes a good team to build a profitable business. And you mentioned relationships. I mean, so many people don't viscerally believe that you need other people for leverage, so you can leverage their time, their expertise, and just them being consistent within the business for it to be profitable and enjoyable. In my culture, Steve, we've got a statement that says, if you want to go far, you go alone, but if you want to go further, you go together. So obviously having relationships like that is a very good thing. Now that you're speaking of relationships, I think you have crafted a very good relationship with our viewers and people that are watching this call right now. What can people expect? What's next for Steve now that we're going to jump on and maybe connect with you on LinkedIn? What should we be on the lookout for?
Well, we're currently, the models we've got in place, we're launching a series of ebooks. I'm currently writing a book. Something I'd always wanted to do was write a book. So that's in process. And it will be centered around helping people to understand financially what deals are about and what can happen or what needs to happen once you acquire a business. So we're putting something like that together at the moment. We are building our accounting group. We're building our leisure group. We've potentially got something in precious metals as well. So anybody wanting to get involved in mergers and acquisitions, reach out. And if I can point them in the right direction of the people who will train me, happy to do that. If they want some help to buy a business themselves, happy to help them to do that as well.
Absolutely. Now, Steve, do you understand that you've actually committed the ultimate sin right now?
No, I'm sure you're going to tell me.
Absolutely. See, you do not mention that you're writing a book and not pledge to come and launch it on the Online Prosperity Show.
Well, I'd be happy to do that. Happy to do that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I mean, obviously sharing your incredible journey with us and the insights, into mergers and acquisitions, because so many people build businesses, but they don't have an end goal, or they don't quite know what to do when the time comes. Or some people want to grow a business, or they want to scale, and maybe buying and acquiring another business could be the way forward. So I really appreciate that you sort of opened up this opportunity for people to be in touch with you, and they can learn a thing or two about mergers and acquisitions.
My pleasure. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on, Prosper.
Fantastic. Now, for those that are watching right now, if you actually enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. I mean, it's not every day that you find an expert and actually tie him down to be able to, spill the beans as to how they're having so much fun buying and selling and scaling businesses out there. And for those that are interested in learning more about mergers and acquisitions, I will be putting all the links in the show notes so you can follow Steve on his journey. As you have noticed, he's just dropped a serious amount of knowledge that can actually help you on your business journey, whether you are looking to get started or to buy other businesses or to actually sell the business that you have. So stay tuned for more episodes where we're going to be bringing you the best in business, entrepreneurship, and everything in between. Until next time, keep thriving and stay prosperous. Bye for now.